The rules of growth are changing. In this episode, Marc Daniels breaks down how entrepreneurs can use AI intentionally, build digital communities that actually convert, and execute disciplined strategies. So, growth in 2026 creates freedom, not chaos. And we've got a lot of that going on, don't we?
We do.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan, your host, the Lead Machine Coach, and the founder of the Lead Machine Marketing Group. I'm dedicated to helping you tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream life. Whether you're just starting out or you want to take your business to the next level, let's get this conversation started and dive into Marc Daniels. He's a strategic planning and execution expert with over 45 years of entrepreneurial experience, from founding Computer Discount of America in 78, 2 years after I graduated high school, to advising hundreds of companies today. Marc helps founders turn clarity into measurable action. And as the founder of MLD Consulting, he equips business owners to scale with discipline, purpose, and modern execution systems. Why does this matter to me, and why do I have him on the show? Many entrepreneurs are chasing AI tools and growth tactics without the clarity of systems and a strategic view. This is no different than when the BlackBerry came out. Although I don't know, it's even more life-changing than that. But when the BlackBerry came out, everybody wanted to have one. That's the next shiny thing, but there was no strategy behind it. So it's the same way today with AI, I think. So, Marc, welcome to the show. I appreciate this. One of the things that I talk about in my book, Speed to Scale, is growth doesn't break businesses, but unprepared systems do. So how does strategic planning today fit into implementing AI and the kind of work that you do?
I'll jump way back. You mentioned that I started a company in 1978, and that was
Yeah.
Computer Discount of America. And we also mentioned the RIM machine, the BlackBerry. But I've just been really blessed over the years in writing trends and then systemizing those trends. The first one was Computer Discount of America. You could not buy a computer. There were no computer stores. You could only buy it at either computer markets, flea markets, traveling flea markets, or through mail order. The first computer I bought was a Heathkit. The Heathkit went under.
Yeah.
Had a Z80 processor in it. And you had to put it together yourself. And so it was a trend. And a lot of people think now that AI is a trend. And while I agree it's a trend, it's really a tool that every business should be using. Let's go back to Computer Discount of America. The early computer users today, I can look back at one of the earlier ones. What was the name? The Milstein Brothers, Burlington Coat Factory. They came to me and they bought 6 TRS-80 Model 1s. And I said, what are you going to do with these? And they said, all our inventory is on cards, index cards. And we're going to put our inventory on a TRS-80 Model 1. And I went into one of their stores about 3 months later and ended up selling them over 30 computers. And most people, I think it's a national chain, Burlington Coat Factory now.
Yeah, it is.
The Milstein brothers started it, and there's one of them still running it, as I understand. They started with computers. It was a tool. Yes, it was a trend at first. Fax machines. I'm playing racquetball with a guy who owns a drugstore. He doesn't have a fax machine yet. I walked in the next day with a fax machine, put it on the counter. I said, you can pay me back whenever you want. You need a fax machine. Cell phones. My first cell phone, I'd pull to the side of the road if I got a signal.
Yeah.
These are all tools that we use now. And AI, while many entrepreneurs look at it as a trend, it's a tool. And it's a tool that every entrepreneur needs to use right now if they want to be successful in this next year and in these upcoming years. But it's not enough just to use. A lot of people think AI is ChatGPT. You have to figure out how these tools will actually strategically fit into your business. And I always start out with any company. My big theme is always plan or fail. So many companies see the shiny object. They're going to get into they're going to go down the AI route. That's great, but you have to have a strategy behind it. It's so important. The very first thing you should do, we just entered a new year, 2026. And if you don't have a plan, that's where you should really start. Put together a plan.
And why do you think it's so important these days? What has changed most in the last decade?
Speed.
I would agree.
Speed. John D. Rockefeller could put together a yearly business plan. We were driving around on trains then. We didn't even have cars yet. And he would sit down and put together a yearly plan. You can no longer put together a plan each year and walk through the whole year with that plan. I really recommend all my clients and anybody I talk to that they sit down every quarter and totally look at the aspects of the plan that are working, see what's not working, and adjust, because technology is moving so fast. Political changes right now. When I was younger, I didn't do what's called a pest analysis. And it's a political. P stands for political, right? E stands for economic. If you're dealing with anything offshore, you're dealing with economic challenges right now because you don't know whether there's a tariff or not a tariff, or yes, there's a tariff. And technology, socially, things are changing. And technology-wise, it's moving at warp speed. Warp speed.
Yeah.
The biggest business to get into right now, if you're going to train to be something, is actually an electrician, because the electricians have to deliver all this power to the AI and computer structure right now. The electricians are making money like crazy right now, and there's a strong demand for electricians. I think I answered your question there. It's just really the speed of change is just so rapid right now.
I agree. And I was expecting that answer, but really it's so fast that there are so many AI tools, so many different things that you can do with them. And we're just scratching the surface. But you say having a plan. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. I agree with that. Is there a particular way that you approach or framework that you use for planning that helps speed up the process and also incorporate planning AI with discipline? Because AI is, like you said, it's just a tool. I still have to deliver. I still have to get clients. I have to deliver the clients. I have to get paid. I have to pay vendors. I have to do shipping and logistics and all the kinds of things that any business would do. And AI is simply a tool. How do we plan and incorporate that into our plans?
When I first started Computer Discount of America in 1978, I didn't know what I was doing. I was really just lucky, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to be in the right spot, right time. But all of a sudden I had a $2 million a year company. And so I read every book there was. And one of the books early I read was writings by a guy called Albert Humphrey that had created this SWOT analysis. So you asked me, one of my methodologies is not a traditional SWOT. The traditional SWOT is flawed, and I've come up with a new way of doing it. But so you have your strengths, and I agree with that. And you have your weaknesses, and I agree with that. So you list all your strengths, you list all your weaknesses. Then you look at the biggest obstacle you face. An obstacle. And then you look at trends. And what do you look at those for? You create one strategic project for this quarter that's aligned with your strengths. Now, maybe that's where you find the tool that you can use to leverage your strength, an AI tool that can leverage your strength. What are you strong at? You're strong at doing posts, but you only get out 5 posts a week, and you want to jump that up to 10 posts a week. Find an AI tool that will help you create your posts more efficiently. There's dozens of them out there. The next thing is you have a weakness. Identify your biggest weakness and do whatever you can to mitigate it or erase it. It might be an AI tool again, rather than going out and hire somebody to answer your phones. Maybe your business is flawed in that you don't answer every phone call quickly enough, or you're not responsive enough. So you can get an AI tool that answers your phone and routes it to the appropriate person, or alerts you when it's something that needs your immediate attention. I just did that for a company I'm coaching on Nantucket, a pool company of all things, and they do pool and landscaping. And
Oh, okay.
they were missing key calls. My water heater's broken in my pool, and they're missing key calls. So we put in an AI agent to route all their calls to the specific person. Super affordable. And it was amazing. So that eliminated a weakness in their case. What's the biggest the biggest obstacle you face? I always like to design one project around your biggest obstacle. If it's collections, if it's cash flow, if it's, those are the two big ones normally, but
Yeah.
it can be many things. And then finally, trend. What's a trend within your industry? What's a trend within your business, within your industry, within your geographic region, within your country, within whatever it is? Find a trend and leverage that. Some of those can be leveraged with AI. And a lot of people say, AI is a trend. I want to use AI as a trend. No, fine. You need to have a trend. And this is where we get to strategy. Okay, we're going to use AI for what? What's the strategy you have to leverage a trend out there within your industry? So, that's when you do one of those projects every single quarter. And
Yeah.
I like breaking it down into quarters. I also
Mhm.
like breaking it down into at least 6 or 12 milestones, because then you, as the entrepreneur, the leader, the CEO, the business owner, can look at any one of those projects and say, week 1, we were supposed to hit this milestone. Week 2, we were supposed to hit this milestone.
Gotcha. So you can manage that. And that's simply by leveraging the SWOT analysis that has been around for
It's
what, since
1961.
61. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. A trend that really caught on was, I think it was the banks who were the first ones to do drive-through. And of course, that revolutionized fast food. And there were some smart people that saw that and said, "Ooh, we got to do that for food." And hardly any business or fast food business, anything at any way, doesn't have a drive-through. Even the pharmacy has a drive-through.
Pharmacies
Uh,
have drive-through nows, and even
yeah,
supermarkets that have drive-throughs, but they have spots that you pull in front of, and you dial, you type your text message them, and they bring your groceries out that you place the order
yeah.
for an hour before. Oh, every industry is leveraging that at this point in time.
So, how do you see AI reshaping small businesses and in 2026? And what should founders do right now without overcomplicating it?
Find your weakest point and use AI there. Find your strongest point. Your biggest strength is always a sure bet. When I design
Mhm.
projects for any of the companies, I always say, let's design a project around your biggest strength. If you get most of your customers from referrals, hammer referrals.
Mm,
Use AI to hammer referrals. Use text messaging to hammer referrals.
yeah.
Leverage your biggest strength and weakness, eradicate, mitigate, blow it away, your biggest weakness. So that's really how I like using AI now, is just finding out where they can plug it in. Lead machine growth. That's the name of this podcast. Without leads, many businesses would fail. So it's all about optimizing your leads. So there, if your leads are weak, you need to find an AI tool that's going to help you leverage your leads to increase the amount of leads that you're getting.
And increase the speed of response is a huge,
Follow throughs.
if you took the leads that you have right now and you responded within a minute or within 5 minutes, you're 7 times more likely to engage and convert than you are if you wait 30 minutes. It drops like 400%, I think is the number that it drops. It's amazing how fast follow up, and AI can help you with that.
It's a company that I work for, and I actually started a division for them in the 90s called Verityper, and I started a division called Prepress, and looked at Verityper, and they're losing money. They were heading right into bankruptcy, and turned to the owner. He was spending so much money on going to trade shows. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I've got
Uh,
200 leads at that last trade show."
Uh-huh.
Okay, 200 leads. That's really good. Said, where are they now? Where are
Uh-huh.
they now?
Mhm.
Most trade shows, only 20% of the leads ever even get followed up on. That's factual research, okay, from Harvard Business. Factual. So what you pointed out, Paul, is so important. The quicker you can trigger that lead to somebody for an immediate
Yeah.
brochure, whatever. I mentioned that the pool company. If the address is on Nantucket, a package gets dropped in their mailbox within 24
Yeah.
hours. Or
Yeah.
there's no mailbox because some of them have post office boxes, gets placed on their front porch.
Mhm.
It's a small island, but that in itself has increased their business tremendously because they're the first in. My father was a Broadway theater critic. The first act and the last act, he used to say, are the most important. The opening
Mm.
act and the closing act.
Yeah.
So you have to get that open in right away. So AI can be used to accelerate that.
And it can be used intentionally and with a personal human touch. And like you said earlier, there always has to be a human in the loop so that edge cases or those priority cases can be followed up by a human or transferred to a human directly.
And I do believe that you can't just go totally robotic. You have to, if you're looking for any decent or large size sale or transaction, there's got to be the human element. Otherwise, the likelihood of it closing goes down right away.
Yeah, this is a bit of a side note, but what do you think of the trend now is to AIify your voice and your own self so that you can appear on video? I have an opinion. I'd like to know what your opinion is on that.
To appear on videos or to actually do cold calls to people?
I think it's mostly being used for so they can produce more what do you call them? Uh, Shoulder up, face on camera, teaching videos or educational or the videos and I think that people are using it for outreach as well.
Yeah. Personally, you started the show telling everybody that I've been in business for 40 some years. Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm 68. My answer to that would be I don't go for it because I think that personal touch is so important. Another company I launched, Diligent, in 2003. We sold that company for $941 million to private equity. Today it's got a valuation of $7 billion. But
Wow.
so many of I would get on a plane to go meet the corporate secretary from ExxonMobil, to meet the corporate secretary of Chiquita Bananas, to meet SunTrust Bank. And that personal touch is what closed these deals. My competitors, on the other hand, were doing it via phone call and doing early Zoom webinars, Zoom demonstrations of products. I'd go right in and I'd meet them. And
That's the authentic you showing up.
it's the authentic you. Chiquita
Mhm.
Banana, the corporate secretary there. I had a demo on Valentine's Day there. I walked
Mhm.
in with a box of heart-shaped cookies. Okay, a little corny, but I did. I found out during the interview or during the demonstration that her son was deployed to, I think it was Afghanistan at the time, flying helicopters.
Uh-huh.
But he only had 2 more weeks to serve, praying that he would come home safely. 2 weeks later, I called her. I said, I'm not calling for a sale. I'm not calling for a follow-up. I'm just calling to check on your son. I couldn't do that with a video. I
Yeah.
couldn't build that personal relationship. And yes, I closed the sale 3 or 4 months later. But when I made that call to her, it was the sincere me because she was a woman legitimately concerned about her husband, her son, her young boy coming home
Mhm.
from flying a helicopter for the military. And I do think that they can be used for some training videos, but
Yeah.
maybe training videos and things like that to optimize perhaps some educational YouTube videos, you could potentially use it for, but when you're talking to the customer you're gonna sign the deal, it's got to be you.
Totally. I totally agree. I think showing up on, that's part of why I have this podcast and why you're on. We're face to face. You're in Connecticut, I'm in Michigan, and we're having a nice conversation and talking about things that really light us up. That's great. So you talk about the power of digital communities. Why are communities becoming essential parts of business assets? And how can we begin building one intentionally instead of just haphazardly?
They build trust. Within a community. You build trust, whether it was the first Boy Scout troop that you belong to, or the first Girl Scout troop that you belong to, or me, I did Boys Brigade. It was a church group based Boy Scout. Whether it's a bowling league, whether it's fantasy football, those are small communities, but communities build trust and relationships. So community building's so big right now to build communities. It's the next big thing. I know Adobe's working on building a community. So I'm working actually with a company that's using AI to communicate to, if you're running for the Senate, you're running for Congress, you can put all your belief systems out there, clear, undistorted, not morphed by CNN or by Fox or by ABC or CBS or NBC. I've tried to mention them all so we don't create any divisive discussion here. But you put a clear profile about what you stand for, and then that person can text message and get text messages back from almost as if they're from you.
Yeah.
So you talked about AI in recording your face or your voice, but this is a chat bot which actually responds back to you and says, no, that's not what I stand for. I believe in this. So it actually speaks to them from a point of that candidate's real platform, not a platform that's been twisted by somebody or falsely manipulated. And that's going to be a big in this upcoming election. That's going to be a big thing, building communities underneath that candidate. There's over 500 people running for Senate or House seats in between now and November next year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're all trying to build a community underneath them. And this is not a political podcast, folks, for listening, but why did the mayor of New York, who's an admitted socialist, win an election in the United States of America? He built a community of support underneath them. And you can do that with your businesses. You can do that. Apple has done that. Apple's built a community of followers. You can do that with any business, build a community. And that's where AI can also be used. There's some great tools, Circle. There's a number of tools that you can build communities under for very affordable. Some of them less than $100 a month to build a community profile. And lots are right underneath your business. So,
and having ownership of your own community versus having like maybe a Facebook group or something like that is important, I think, because those platforms keep changing. And so having your own platform, like you said, Circle or Go High Level, or there's tons of different ones.
And you can shut that. You can, using AI, Paul, I interrupted you. I apologize. But using AI, you can shut down conversations within that community because AI is built into it. So if I have somebody that's swearing in my community, I can shut it down. If I have somebody
cuff them, cuff them or cuss them.
That's right. So if I have somebody doing anything, we can shut that part of that community down. So you can make these communities very safe.
Yeah.
You'll see communities for younger generation being something that's already being developed, but you'll see a wider acceptance of that over the next several years, of whether it's a Nickelodeon community or whatever it might be. I think you'll see safe communities for children and for young adults.
Yeah, and I think safety is important, and that human connection is really paramount. we've really gotten away from that with the Zooms and the webinars and things like that. Having interactive conversations like we're having here, or even text messaging or some sort of give and take where you can talk in real time is just, remember when instant messenger first came out? I mean, I used to love that because it was a conversation you could have right away, or if you were busy, you could respond later. But of course, we're using SMS now for that same thing. But it's less of a community. It's more of a one-to-one thing. But yeah, I agree that digital communities are very important. So most entrepreneurs create plans, but struggle with execution. So they've got these grandiose plans, but where do you see the biggest breakdowns? What are 2 or 3 clear signals a business isn't ready for the growth it wants to have in 2026?
The execution is key. And
Yeah.
I did a great plan in Kennebunkport, Maine, with a mentor of mine, Bob Trenkamp. He's passed away, but we spent 3 days in Kennebunkport, Maine, in a beautiful old hotel, and put together a strategic plan. And we got home. He was a great leader, but when we got back to New Jersey, that's where it all stopped. Getting back quickly to what I do with my version of a swaddle, I call it a swaddle 4. You take your 4 projects for the quarter. Now, you can have more projects in a company than 4, but the CEO or entrepreneur should be working your 4 largest projects: the strength project, the weakness project, the obstacle project, and the trend project. But break them down into at least 6 milestones spread out over the next 12 weeks. And hold a weekly meeting. It's the most important thing you can do. Have a weekly leadership team meeting. I hate meetings. God, I was a chief operating officer of Flextronics Test in San Jose, California, multi-billion-dollar company. Meetings out the wazoo. Okay. Crazy amounts of meetings. So I detest meetings, but you can meet for 50 minutes. You have an icebreaker in the beginning. What good news happened to you over this past week, personal or business? And then you dive right into those 4 projects. And you go through those 4 projects. And if somebody's doing it well, you say, congratulations, you've done a great job. And I might get to you, Paul, and I said, Paul, your project's fallen behind by a week. How can we help you to get it back on track? What can the team and I do to help you to get this project back on track? And we jump to the next project and the next project. It's that weekly. And if you can't make that meeting, appoint somebody else to run it. So week 1's planning and 12 weeks of execution. And before you assign something to a person, I'll always ask you, I'll say, hey, Paul, do you think you could do this over the next 12 weeks? And if you hesitate, even for a minute, I can say, what could we do to make it more comfortable for you? What can we do to take it off your plate? What could we take off your plate to make it easier for you to achieve this? And you might say, I need another person. Paul, you got that extra person. Now do you think you can do it? And you said, yes. Now he's something simple. And you just gave me permission to beat you up every week. Because I said, Paul, come on, buddy. You told me last week you can do it.
Yeah.
How can we help you get it back on track? So whoever's the team leader for that project, get there in week 0 or week 1 that they can do it. And then so many business leaders don't balance their resources. You might need an extra person. You might need an extra $5,000 to pull off this project. So make sure the resources for that project, but you have to look at that project every week. And I promise you, at the end of the quarter, you will have made progress on maybe all 4 of those projects.
Yeah.
But you'll make progress.
Yeah, that's built in accountability. And again, that's a small community, but nonetheless, there's feedback and support built into it and structure, which I think that would be a real clear signal that a business isn't ready for growth if they can't execute, if they can't do what you say.
The stats are that only 30% of companies put together a plan. Okay, so That means 30 of 100 have put together a plan. And the follow-up stats that Harvard does this review every 2 years, they go out and do a study, that only 15% of those companies are able to execute the plan. That brings it down to something like 3 or 4 companies actually had a plan and executed it. So the execution is so key. So I really stress, number one, start out with a plan. And even if it's a poor plan, it's better than having no plan. I've seen leaders just gyrate. They get it bet. They want it perfect before they roll it out. They're reacting, rehashing it. No, get that plan out and get it working. And then meet every week, once a week. When I take on a direct client, I run that meeting for them. Sometimes the CEO runs it, but I sit in on it. All my direct clients, I sit in on their weekly meeting. My group coaching classes, sometimes I'll volunteer to sit in on 1 or 2 if they're struggling. But I stress they have to meet weekly. And that's the biggest thing with execution. You know, it's like I hired that vice president from Tesla. He knows what he's doing. Yes, he probably does. Probably very talented. He had a good resume. But if you're not monitoring it as the CEO or the owner, or you have to every week hold them accountable to the execution. So that meeting's so paramount to success.
So you've been in entrepreneurship for what, 4 decades? More than that, maybe?
4.5, yep.
4.5, yeah. What identity shift did you make and do founders need to make as they move from being a builder to becoming a steward of their business?
I'm still learning to do that. The first thing I probably found out was get a healthy work-life balance. Family should really be a key component of what you're doing. There's a book written by a guy called Dan Martell. It's Buy Back Your Time. I don't agree with everything in the book, but the first 3 chapters really talk about something that I have done over the years is when you hire somebody that can replace something that you're doing, and hopefully they're better than you or smarter than you at whatever you were doing, or can do it quicker than you could do it. And that's the premise of the Buy Back Your Time book. If you're doing something, your time's worth $200, $300, $500, $1,000 an hour. But if you can hire somebody to do it for 20 or 30 or 40 hours to do that same job and take that off of your plate. Early on in my career, I would be out in the parking lot at Christmas time in a big tent behind our building because we couldn't fit all the computers in our building, shipping computers with tape guns and pushing those computers out to UPS. It took me a while to figure out that was not a good use of my time.
Not a good,
I was working hard, but not the best use of my time. Those are the lessons I learned over the years, is to really to plan out my week. I have a pretty crazy calendar. Everything is really very structured. I used to fly out on Mondays, and I'd fly in every Wednesday or Thursday, so I'd be back with my family to coach my daughter's soccer team, to go to church on Sunday. Every now and then I'd have to fly out on a Sunday night, but I was the last flight out. And so that came over time, that I learned to become more efficient in that regard and hire people that were smarter than I, or could replace what I was doing for less of a rate. One of the companies, I actually think I heard this today or last week in one of your podcasts. Don't judge a company by how many employees. I think it was in one of your podcasts I might have heard it. By how many employees they have. That's not the right way to measure. Make sure the employees are doing the right work.
Another question I like to ask leaders, especially who've been in leadership roles like you have, hiring people and growing businesses. One thing that puzzles a lot of, I see this happen, and I've been in companies where it has happened, where there was this usually a family-owned business or a solo entrepreneur who starts to bring on staff and whatnot. And he's got these core values, and they're solid, and everybody knows it. Everybody rallies under that leader and that hope and that feeling of togetherness, like community, like you say. But over time, as the business grows, they need to retool because of resources and things that we've been talking about. But yet, those original values get distilled and forgotten. So how do leaders make sure that, and you mentioned this in the intro, we were talking about leading with purpose and growing with purpose. How do we retain those values and maybe even make them better as we go, as we grow and as we go along?
Once a year, I always work first with the company's vision. I want to make sure that their core purpose is clear, their core values are clear, and their exit plan. I actually force business leaders to, what do you want to do and where do you want to be in 5 years or 10 years with that? Jim Collins called it a BHAG. What's your big dream? But as far as the core values, which is your question, they will change over time. Always try to hire to your core values. When I've had to terminate people, it was always in some way or aspect, those people were not aligned with my core values. Now, how do you keep everybody on the same page with core values? I told you about my once a week executive team meeting, and I open with an icebreaker. And then we go through the 4 projects, but I always close with somebody on the executive team sharing something that another executive team member did that's aligned with one of our core values. Every leadership team meeting, I might say, listen, one of our core values is honesty or integrity. And by the way, I write out, those are just words. I write out what it means to be filled with integrity. I want every core value, a sentence behind that explains in layman's words, what is integrity, right? Yeah. Or what is honesty? So I want to do a shout and end every meeting with, I want to do a shout out to Paul this week because he's always on time. And one of our core values is timeliness. And in fact, he joined this podcast 3 minutes early. That's a factual, I rolled into a factual fact there, but yeah, you do a shout out and that's you're reinforcing your core values to your leadership team. Each of your leaders should be having a weekly meeting with their team too. Again, a quick meeting. I don't like any of these meetings going over an hour. You should be able to pull off your leadership team meeting in 1 hour, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So I'm not a meeting nut, but there are some key.
But it supports the accountability that you've got to have.
You have to do, if you end every one of your meetings with that, somebody's got to state the core value. And then once a year, once I've worked with a client for a year, I usually revisit the core values at least once a year. I say, are these still our core values? I'm doing it with a lot of clients right now in January where I'm saying, I did one last week, where I said, these are the core values we picked out a year ago. Do these still resonate with you? Is this still factual? And we changed one of them. We reworded one of them. We changed it. So, yeah.
I think you get clarity over time, too. You've got to have a starting point. But those are meant to be revisited and like you say, revisited and changed if necessary, or upgraded or made more clear.
And if anybody listening wants to see a good core value, go to the Gillette Corporation, Robert Kraft organization, who owns the Patriots. And he's got a great core value statement and core values. And then he explains each one. So it's like one of his core values is think like a lead, think like an owner. How does an owner think? So he explains how an owner thinks. So it's just a great set of core values. My daughter worked for the New England Revolution for a few years, and she turned me on to it actually, because prior to that, she worked for the New York Giants. And then she went over to the New England Revolution, the soccer team. And she said, you'd love this. These core values we went through yesterday in the training class, but they're actually live on their website. So it's nothing that's secretive or anything. They're very open about their core values.
Yeah. Mark, it's been a pleasure having you on today. What are three things, and we probably touched on a lot of them, what are three things our listeners and viewers can do today to put these ideas into action?
Start with a plan. And the plan should really entail your vision, what your core purpose is. Secondly, work on the strategy. Setting goals or if your CFO did a spreadsheet and you think that's a plan, that's not a plan, that's a wish list, that's a forecast. You have to have a strategy. And I really recommend that you set 4 strategic projects aligned with that. And then finally, the execution becomes key. Start holding a weekly meeting with your leadership team. Be religious about it. Be adamant about it. Meet every week. Mondays, I find, are the best because you look at what happened the previous week. You find out what's working, what's not working. And when something's not working, you roll up your sleeves and fix it. That's what you're paid to do as a leader. Fix those problems. And if you don't have that weekly meeting, you're not going to see those problems. They're going to escape you, and you'll find out about them when your CFO hands you a financial spreadsheet or your accountant 45 days after the quarter has ended. And you can say, oh no. So by having that weekly meeting, you'll get out in front of it and you'll grow. I promise you'll grow.
Outstanding. Mark, thank you so much. You have a free resource for our audience. It's the 2026 Entrepreneurial Readiness Assessment. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how to get it?
Sure. Go to my website. It's Marc with a C, ldaniels.com. marcldaniels.com, and just click on the link for a readiness assessment. It'll only take you 5 to 7 minutes to fill out. You'll get a score right away. And within 48 hours, I will send you a personalized recommendation of areas to work on to help you get really in good shape to have an incredible 2026. And if no matter what time of year you're listening to this podcast, whether it's January, February, March, or even as far out as July or any time, it's never too late to have a plan. You need a plan. It all starts with a plan.
I love it.
I'm just going to end with this. Here's the truth. Most businesses don't fail. They drift. They have no clear destination, no real strategy, no execution discipline. 2026 has started, and most founders, at least 70% of them, are not ready. You don't have a plan. And it's not because you're not smart or hardworking. It's just because you never stopped to put together a plan. Plan on purpose. Plan on purpose, or fail by default.
Yeah. And plus, if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do.
C.W. Lewis, I think, right?
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis, yeah.
So. Yeah. Thanks again, Mark. Remember, as we sign off, faith and action go hand in hand, so keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyan. And Marc Daniels, my brother, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.